Hello, I read 13 books in December. Let's talk about, no, not December, oh my god, January. Let's talk about those, not the December ones. So the first book I finished in January is A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. This is the prequel to, what the fuck is the name? Priory of the Orange Tree, that's it. This video is a mess already. Let's just keep going. Essentially this takes place in a high fantasy world where there are dragons. And like centuries ago, a dragon called the Nameless One destroyed everything. And today the fire dragons are gone, but there are some water dragons, and some countries revere the water dragons where others are afraid and like hate all dragons. And you're following a wide cast of characters throughout this land. It's kind of hard to summarize this book without spoiling anything, so I think I'm gonna leave it at that. I don't even know how many stars I gave this. I need to get my laptop. I gave this book 3.5 stars. I didn't like it as much as Priory of the Orange Tree. I just personally had a bit of a harder time getting into it, especially in the beginning when like each chapter follows a different POV, and getting into this book was quite difficult because I felt like as soon as I was getting a grasp on one person, I would switch to another, and then I just kept getting people confused. So it took a while to really like immerse myself in the world. I do really love that it's like a female-centered high fantasy with LGBTQIA+ rep, and I really can't wait to see what Shannon does after this, and I hope that she keeps writing hefty fantasies because I just think that she's great at it. After that, I read a book from my Reading the Goodreads Choice Awards winner video, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. But that is In the Lives of Puppet by T.J. Klune. This book follows a family of 3 robots and a human boy. They're living in peace in the forest. They like inventing things and fixing things. But then one day the robot that's a stand-in for the boy's father is kidnapped, and he goes on an adventure to get his dad back. I gave this book 3 stars. And that's all I'm going to say about it. If you want to hear my thoughts, go watch that video. Then I picked up Notes on Heartbreak by Annie Lord. This is a memoir that details the author's notes on heartbreak. She wrote it right after a breakup, and it talks about her feelings throughout that as well as her healing journey afterwards. I gave this book 3.5 stars. I think it's a perfect book for someone that's going through a breakup. I wasn't at the time, so maybe that affected my enjoyment of it a little bit. I think the author does a really good job at portraying like the despair and heartbreak in a very raw and real way. But although I found this book to be like comforting in that sense, I don't think it's very groundbreaking. I didn't think the writing was amazing. I just thought it was fine. And there's also like a few things in here that just make me feel a little weird. Like, she's talking about her relationship, but her relationship started with her ex-boyfriend basically cheating on his girlfriend with her, and she never addresses that or talks about how that's wrong, which left me feeling a little icky. And again, about the writing, I feel like most of the best lines in here are just quotes from other people, which is a little harsh, I guess, but that's how I felt. And I also felt a little repetitive at times, but overall I did enjoy it, and honestly I think the next time I go through a breakup I'll probably pick this up again. I gave it 3.5 stars. Did I say that? I don't know. Then I read a total of 5 books for a video, so again I'll just summarize the plot and give you my star rating, but I won't talk about my thoughts. The first book is Childhood by Tove Ditlevsen. This is a memoir that talks about her childhood growing up as a working class family in Copenhagen. It is Copenhagen, right? Yep, I was right. I gave this book, how many stars did I give this book? I gave this book 3 stars. After that, I picked up Time as a Mother by Ocean Vuong. This is a poetry collection. I gave it 2 stars. Then I read The Lover by Marguerite Duras. This book takes place in French colonial Vietnam, and it follows a young teenage girl when she falls in love with a Chinese man. I gave this book 3 stars. Then I read The Stepford Files by I don't know why I said that so weird, by Ira Levin. This book follows a family who just moved into the Stepford community, and the wife starts to notice that all the women in the community are acting weird. I gave this book 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. And the last book I read for that video was The Madonnas of Leningrad by Deborah Dean. This book takes place first during the siege of Leningrad, and then there's an alternate timeline where it follows those characters but when they're older and senile and have Alzheimer's. I gave this book 2 stars. After that, I picked up 19 Claws and a Blackbird by Augustina Bastrika. This is a collection of horror short stories. I picked this up because I really love Tender as the Flesh by this author. Like, I first of all struggle with short stories in general. I feel like I need more to really get into something. And after I read this, I was just left with the thought that they're just okay and no other thoughts. And honestly, I've completely forgotten every single short story in here. So I gave it 2 stars. Wouldn't really recommend. After that, I read the Southern Books Club After that, I read the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. This is a thriller horror novel that follows our main character, Patricia, who is part of this book club where they read true crime books. And then someone new moves into the neighborhood and gradually they start talking about him and they suspect him of being a vampire. This book was so fun. Like, I just enjoyed myself the whole time and I gave it 4 stars. Then, because I enjoyed The Stepford Wives so much, I picked up Rosemary's Baby. I have never watched the movie, so I had no idea what I was in for going into this, but essentially it follows our main character Rosemary, who moves into this apartment building with her husband, and she was warned ahead of time that bad things happen in this apartment building, but it was so beautiful that she didn't care. And then she becomes pregnant, but as she becomes pregnant, she starts noticing weird things going on with her neighbors and weird things going on with her husband. I gave this book 5 stars. Again, I absolutely loved it. I want to read everything by this author now, and I'm also tempted to read the sequel, even though it's been very poorly rated, but I kind of want to try it anyway. Next, I read Flowers in the Attics by V.C. Andrews. This book follows a group of children. There's a boy, a girl, and then 2 young twins who are also a boy and a girl, and at the beginning of the book their father dies and their mother takes them to live with her parents, but on the condition that they have to basically be stuck in the attic all the time. And she tells them that once her father dies and she inherits his money, then they can live as a family again. I didn't know what to expect with this one. I know it's like a classic, but I had never really heard the plot. What I can say now that I'm finished with it is that this book is totally fucked up. It's like the author just pictured every fucked up thing she could imagine and pushed it all into one book. But that said, it wasn't all that bad. Like, it was really slow in the beginning. And I think that Andrews also doesn't like quite know how children talk, because that was a little cringy. I also hate the rape scene, so trigger warning for that. There is a rape scene and it's disgusting, obviously. But I will say that once I got past the initial slowness, I was able to read the last half of the book in like a single sitting, so that does bear some weight. I gave this book 3 stars. And the last book that I read in January is Scarlake by Genevieve Cogman. I had that name wrong in my head. This book takes place during the French Revolution, but it has a twist. Essentially, this book takes place in a world where there are also vampires. So you're following our main character, whose name I can't remember right now. What is it? So you're following our main character, Eleanor, who is a maidservant in this vampire's castle in England, and she looks like a very well-known noble in France, and so they hatched this scheme to bring her to France to try to get this noble out of France so they don't die in the French Revolution. I gave this book 2.5 stars. I think the idea of like French Revolution plus vampires is very fun, but the other day I just couldn't get over how we're all supposed to be on the side of the aristocrats. Like, there are moments in here where the main character is talking to the aristocrats and she's like, oh, like they don't get what it's like to be a normal person. But then she has no sympathy for the revolution. It's kind of mind-boggling. I think this would be a more interesting read for someone who's like less interested in politics, because as someone with like Marxist tendencies, I just could not be on the side of the aristocrats. Like, regardless of the brutality of the revolution, it's just like the whole idea that these aristocrats are these poor souls who didn't do anything wrong is just ridiculous. So yeah, I give this 2.5 stars. I will not be continuing on with the series. So there you go. Those are all the books I read in January. Let me know what books you read down below, and I'll see you soon with another video. Goodbye.